It's Friday on Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad to be back for another day. Final show of the week, and a really good one at that. Phil Miller from the Star Tribune joins me here in just a little bit to talk Twins. Lost their home opener 4-2 yesterday to Cleveland. 3-3 on the season. Nice day for baseball. Frustrating day at the plate for the Twins. Left a ton of guys on base. Struck out 15 times. When they're at their worst, that is kind of the formula, right? Not enough contact, not enough clutch hitting. 4-2 loss certainly could have gone the other way. But Phil and I will talk about not just that game, but kind of big picture takeaways from the first week of the season, what we can glean from their start this year. And probably one of the biggest takeaways is, man, they sure do miss Royce Lewis when he's not in there, and he will not be in there for quite some time now as he recovers from that calf strain suffered in the first game of the season. So we'll talk to Phil in a little bit. Got some Gopher basketball stuff to get to at the end of the show. Going to get some women's basketball here in just a minute. First, though, what I miss. Let's write the eulogy for the Wild's season. It's pretty much over. It's not completely mathematically over, but Hockey Reference now gives them a 0.2% chance of making the playoffs this year. 0.2% chance. So basically, yeah, 1 out of every 500 times in this scenario, they would make the playoffs. Not going to happen. It was already very unlikely, but they lose 5-2 to Colorado last night. That's basically their last gasp, not getting it done this year. Let's talk about the season as a whole, and also a little bit of kind of big picture forecasting for the future. Not the season they certainly wanted to have, not necessarily a surprise in their trajectory if you thought maybe they overachieved a little bit last year or got some things to go their way. You know, they've been constrained, of course, by the decisions they made. Bill Guerin's decisions to buy out Zach Parise and Ryan Suter so many years ago, kind of put them in this salary cap crunch, put them on a path where they had been able to succeed and, relatively thrive throughout most of it. But now they're kind of in this place where I feel like they're plateauing, and they're plateauing at the wrong time. You never want to plateau, but what I'm saying is, if this kind of like middle of the road, kind of like okay team that wasn't quite good enough to make the playoffs, but was still in contention, on the fringes till the last couple weeks of the season, if this was next year when they were right up against the time when they were finally going to be out from underneath the salary cap crunch, then it would feel okay. But they've got another year now where they still don't have, the money from the buyouts, the $15 million or so of cap space still eaten up next year. So I guess the point I want to make about that is, I don't quite know how they get better next year, or at least measurably better. I could see them getting like a tiny bit better to be, maybe a little bit better of a contender for a low playoff seed, because like I've talked about on here a couple days ago, they've been playing better generally lately. They've been playing some of their best hockey. They had the bad stretch to start the year. Since the All-Star break, they've been much better. They've been playing at more of a playoff clip since the All-Star game. But all of them count, right? The whole season counts. You don't just get to pick and choose which ones you count on your resume, which ones you count on your record. So my concern is going forward, how do they get measurably better? I know they've got some prospects in the pipeline, but a lot of them have already, the best ones maybe have already arrived, or a lot of the best ones, like, hey, thinking about this year not making the playoffs, they got a Calder Trophy worthy performance from Brock Faber. If not for, almost a certain winner with Connor Bedard, you'd be talking about Brock Faber being the Calder Trophy winner. I think he should still be in that conversation. You got a breakout year from Marco Rossi, who is also in some of the early conversation as at least a contender for the Calder. You got really good performances from some young players. What you didn't get is enough consistency from your veterans. You got a representative year from Kirill Kaprizov, but not like a breakthrough year or another step forward. He's probably going to finish with 40 goals. That's a really good year, but that's not like superstar level. That's best player on the team level. That's not superstar level. That's not put the team on your back kind of level. So can he get to that spot in his career when, again, oh, by the way, he's only got a couple years left on his contract as well, thinking about where that's going to go in the future. Didn't get enough from some of your other veteran guys who are, again, signed for a longer term with no move clauses, things like that. Like, I'm just kind of looking at this like the one thing that could really unstick them is if Jasper Wallstead takes a huge step forward next year, comes in here, earns playing time, and becomes a dominant number one goalie. It's a lot to ask of someone his age, but the goaltending has to get better by and large. It was below average for most of the year. I think Marc-Andre Fleury had a good run in the second half of the year, put them into some games, got them more competitive, but he's not going to be here forever. He might not even be here, next year. He might retire. We don't know exactly what he's going to do, but he kind of carried them. Philip Gustafson kind of took that step back, right? You were wondering, could he repeat what he did a couple years ago? Didn't do that this year over the long haul. So goaltending is an area where they certainly can improve, but not guaranteed to improve it. So my big question for next year is, how do the Wild get better? I know that's not maybe like the short term, hey, can they be a little bit more competitive is not the goal. You want to win Stanley Cups. You've still got players in the pipeline 2-3 years down the road that could help you do that. You got to kind of bridge that gap, though. How do they bridge that gap next year without the cap space? That will be my question going forward, now that we know this team is going to come up short of the playoffs this year. Let's shift our focus to women's basketball. All eyes will be on the women's game tonight. National semifinals. South Carolina against North Carolina State. Let's not overlook that game, by the way. South Carolina is still the prohibitive favorite to win the entire thing. They are great. They are a dominant team this season. No matter what happens in the game after that one, they will be favored to win. However, most of the attention is being put, and rightfully so, because of the star power on the game after that. 8:30 roughly tip-off. UConn against Iowa. Paige Beckers, the former Hopkins star, against Caitlin Clark, of course, National Player of the Year, the dominant player. We saw her a couple weeks ago here at the Big Ten tournament in Minneapolis, raining threes the other day in that final, in that Elite Eight win over LSU. That's going to be the game to watch, right? We've been talking about that game for the last 4 days. That's going to be the one where all the eyeballs are going to be on that game. Now, I thought the Star Tribune, Kent Youngblood, and some other colleagues took a very interesting and fun approach to that game, kind of talking to a lot of people in our market kind of about what this means, what this kind of run for women's basketball has meant. The LSU-Iowa game setting a TV record for most viewers in a game just a few days ago on Monday in that Elite Eight matchup. Cheryl Reeve weighing in on on that, the Lynx coach and general manager, president of basketball operations, just kind of talking about how great those two players are. She said, what will be on full display is the way Paige and Gino Auriemma has said it all along, the way she leans into the team to make her team better. She won't drop 40. That's Clark and Iowa, and how it works for them. 2 identities, 2 teams, 2 superstars, 2 great coaches. Just talking about how this has been a great time for women's basketball. Kent also talked to Lindsay Whalen about how great this time is, what a boom it is. She said it's like the tech boom. It's growing so fast. It feels like everybody is watching it. There are so many eyes on the game, people talking about it. So go read that story. It's just an interesting approach to kind of get into this game, this matchup, kind of what this moment feels like in women's basketball. Now, one final point on that. Speaking of Cheryl Reeve, I was looking at the latest ESPN women's basketball WNBA mock draft. Lynx have the number 7 overall pick this year. Mock draft, ESPN projecting Angel Reese, the LSU star who recently declared for the draft, to go to the Lynx at number 7. That would be an interesting fit. Would be curious to see if the Lynx would go with Reese, an excellent interior player, shot blocker, rebounder, scorer inside. Doesn't really have that outside game that they maybe covet these days. Maybe that can be developed over time, but how would that fit work? How would her personality and Cheryl Reeve's personality work together? That would be a fascinating mix. Again, mock drafts being what they are, who knows exactly what's going to happen, but Reese just projected in general to be around the number 7, number 8 pick in terms of overall draft prospect. That's right where the Lynx are. So that should be a fun kind of subplot when the WNBA draft happens a week from Monday, April 15th, a week from Monday. We will find out all about that and whether the Lynx would go that route and whether Reese would still be there at number 7.
Twin Cities PBS invites you to watch The Electric Indian, a new documentary about Minnesota hockey legend Henry Boucher, a standout hockey star from Warroad, Minnesota, who made it all the way to the 1972 Olympics. Watch The Electric Indian on the PBS app or at tpt.org.
Let's talk to Star Tribune Twins beat writer Phil Miller right now. He is in the Target Field press box as we record. It is right now late Thursday evening. The Twins, Phil, have just lost their home opener 4-2. Kind of a buzzkill kind of a game. Not like a buzzkill start to the season. They're 3-3. They're okay. But, maybe some of the things that happened today, a bit of a microcosm of the season so far. Not getting guys home when they had opportunities. Just the offense not really clicking so far this season when they hoped it would be.
Yeah, they came out of spring training assuring themselves that all is well, that the fact that they didn't score runs, that the fact that they had the worst record in the Grapefruit League, not a thing. But the offense has been kind of slow to come around. They led the league in home runs last year, and they kind of depend on home runs. It was a buzzkill kind of a day because there was a feeling throughout the day that the Twins were not outplaying the Guardians, although they did throw 3 runners out at the plate. But that they were the team that was hitting the ball hard. Cleveland had 7 hits, 6 singles. I don't think any of the singles even reached 100 mile an hour exit velocity. In their big 3-run inning, 2 of the hits, they had 4 hits that inning. 2 of them were in the 70s in exit velocity. They were basically just lobbed into the outfield. But the Twins constantly had guys on base and went 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position, and just struck out 15 times. You kept waiting for someone to get a hold of one. Here they go. And Eddie Julian did have an opposite field homer, but just chance after chance after chance, missed opportunity. It had to have been a frustrating game for the people who paid money to watch it.
Yeah, and Pablo Lopez can fix a lot of what ails you, and he's done that certainly throughout his career here. But he couldn't do that this time. He was good, but not great, and again gives up those runs in that critical inning, and that's basically the ball game.
Yeah, he pitched really well. I said to him after the game, there's a case to be made that you pitched better today than you did in Kansas City, where he gave up the leadoff home run and then no other runs, but there were some balls that had to be run down by the defense, and this just seemed like it. He retired the first nine batters. It seemed like he was dominating, even in the 3-run inning. It seemed like he had things under control. So it's a strange game, and it makes you realize that with this pitching staff, I used to throw a name from way back. I used to feel this with Johan Santana.
Yeah.
If he didn't get the win, you went, uh-oh, because it gave you a lot less confidence in everyone else. When he's going good, you think that the rotation's fine. When he takes a loss, especially on a day where he actually seemed like he pitched pretty well, you think, uh-oh, that's they need that from him. So it was a weird day all the way around.
And that's the difference, right? This year to last year, when you had Lopez and Sonny Gray, who were essentially 1A and 1B. And, arguably Joe Ryan was pitching just as well as either of those guys for half the season, but maybe didn't have that established kind of clout that those guys did for, believing that he could sustain that. But yeah, you're right. When you lose a Pablo Lopez start, and they won his first start, obviously, and he certainly could have won today, but when you lose that and you're like, okay, now it puts a little bit more pressure on Joe Ryan, certainly puts some pressure on Bailey Ober, who had a bad start his first time out. Joe Ryan was good in his first start, but it doesn't stack up quite the same when you can't say that next name, Sonny Gray, in the number 2 spot.
Yeah, and we knew that would be a problem all year. Yeah, and I don't mean to suggest that Joe Ryan and even Bailey Ober, who had a really strong spring, I was surprised, as was he, about his start last Sunday. Those guys, it's a good enough rotation. I don't think that's a big problem, but it just goes to show you when you have an ace, when you have someone head and shoulders, and they don't come out of there with a win. Yeah, you feel like, oh, we were kind of counting on that one. I think the Twins kind of felt a little bit about that today.
You were in Kansas City for the opening series, and you know, first inning, Royce Lewis homers. He's got a flair for the moment. Third inning, he gets on base again. He's going to third base, and all of a sudden, it looks like he, got punched in the leg. And now we know he's got a pretty severe calf strain. Thinking like late May, maybe by the time he's back. If we've learned anything so far this year, it kind of feels like, man, this team sure misses Royce Lewis a lot when he's not healthy.
Rocco was talking about that before the game. He was talking about the middle of the lineup. You could use a Nelson Cruz right now, and he was saying, and it's very true if you're around the team a lot. Royce Lewis has only got 250 career at bats, maybe, and they really miss him. He is such a dynamic force in the middle of the lineup. They really got used to him in the spring last year. They loaded the bases twice and nobody hit a grand slam. Where was Royce? It's going to be a long 2 months. I mean, the offense is better than it showed today, but it really is noticeable that they don't have one of their big three sluggers in the middle of the lineup, and the one slugger who is probably on the upswing of his career that you can see getting better and better.
With Lewis, this is not his first injury. He had the ACL he had to work his way back from. He had various other things he was dealing with last year.
Two ACLs,
right? Two ACLs, and then the other stuff he dealt with last year. Is there? I mean, we start thinking about Buxton in a certain way. I don't want to think about Royce Lewis that way, but he stays healthy through the spring. Everybody's confident. Then boom, another injury. Is there? I don't know, internal, external concern about just his overall durability at this point?
Well, both of his injuries, like of his last two injuries, one that kept him out for 3 weeks last year, and now this one, he just got running the bases. He was just trying to beat out an infield hit last year. This one, just trying to go first to third. But I'm sure there's concern. This is a guy who's in this is his 8th year in the organization. Wow. 8 years, yeah. It's
2017 first overall, yeah.
8th year in the organization, man. Like we said, he's got 250 at bats. He's still 26, I think. So it's not that big a concern that in the future, and it could all just be random. I mean, a couple of Buxtons were running into a wall, and concussions and migraines and things. So you hope not. I certainly Royce doesn't feel it. Royce wearing a gold and green Wild jersey in the clubhouse post game. He definitely knows the crowd he's played to in Minnesota. But one thing I will say about him is they're concerned enough where they're not going to let him come back early. They're not going to rush him. Royce, we asked him in the clubhouse, "How you feeling?" He said, "I feel pretty good." But one thing I've learned from being around here, it doesn't matter what I think, and that is true. They are going to try to head off because of the Buxton experience, because of others. They're going to try to head off anything that might linger. So I would say whenever Royce is ready to come back physically, add another 10 days to that, and that's when we'll see him.
Now, it's early in the year, so a lot of the starters aren't going that deep into games anyway. This is kind of the pattern across baseball. I know Pablo went 7 in the first game, right? But then everybody else has been
95 pitches today, though. That's that's a mid-season workload. So he's certainly ready to go.
That said, I mean, everybody else has been 5 1/3, 4. I think Ober, obviously, that's, that was more, he was just getting knocked around, not because of some sort of pitch count that they took him out in the second inning. But it's fine this time of the year, right? They've got off days all over the place. They've had off days all over the place. I think that their third one already this year is Friday. Starting Saturday, peeking at the calendar, I think they play 12 days in a row, or at least they're scheduled to play 12 days in a row. How do you think the rotation, the bullpens, which has been good so far, especially even with the injuries to Thielbar and Duran kind of, impacting the back end, the bullpen's been good. A lot of good arms down there so far. How do you think that plays out when you got to play 12 in a row as opposed to having 3 off days in your first 6?
Well, we'll see. You're right. The schedule tightens up now, and a bunch of those games are on the road. 4 in Detroit, 3 in Baltimore. After the Dodgers come to town.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, that's right. I thought that the first time through the rotation was encouraging. I mean, they only got 4 innings out of Louis Varland, but the bullpen showed that 4 or 5, maybe into the 6 is going to be enough from the end of the rotation guys, because the bullpen does look strong. They're missing, as you said, Duran and Thielbar, and you didn't mention Justin Topa.
Right.
They back of the bullpen, Jax, Okert, Stewart, and now Daniel Duarte has really looked pretty good. Even their back end with Cole Sands and Cody Funderburg pitched well today. So we thought the bullpen would be good. And now I think that it could be really good once those guys start returning. And in a year that we're just going to be saying all year, we're missing Sonny Gray in that rotation. That will be important. But I say this a week into the season.
Right.
The signs are there that they can, that they might be able to make this work. The bullpen is a real weapon, I think.
15 strikeouts Thursday. I mean, this is organizational philosophy. They don't want to strike out 15 times, but they don't mind it as long as they're hitting the ball hard. I feel like I read the Rocco quote from the game. He was like, better at bats when you got guys in scoring position, especially give yourself a chance, put the ball in play a little bit. Is he a little frustrated with 15 strikeouts, or how do you think he deals with that?
Well, I wonder. Eddie Julian came up in the second inning with the bases loaded. Eddie Julian came up in the 7th inning with 2 runners on base. In the middle, between those two, he homered, opposite field homer. Impressive, really impressive. 3 times today, he looked at strike 3. It's something he does. He was 5th in the majors in the number of called third strikes he took last year.
Haven't looked to see if Royce's tweeted about it yet, but I'm sure he might have.
I think I heard him from the back row there. Okay. Rocco's not going to criticize a single player publicly like that, but he might have been referring to give ourselves a chance. I know Eddie Julian is very good at working the count and getting on base. If he draws those walks, you think, wow, what a great mastery of the strike zone. But there are days like today when he had some real RBI opportunities and he didn't swing the bat. And I think that that sticks in a manager's memory a little bit. I would not be surprised if, the strikeouts were all through the lineup. He wasn't even the only one to strike out 3 times. But he gave up some RBI chances there that I sense that Rocco would have liked to have seen him swing the bat.
Royal Credit Union's Smart Checking accounts offer no monthly fees and no minimum balance. Enjoy financial freedom when you open your Royal Credit Union Smart Checking account online at rcu.org/go-checking. Insured by NCUA.
Few more things for you, Phil, off of the home opener Thursday, a 4-2 Twins lost 3-3 on the season. Started out 2-0, dropped a couple, won one, and now lost this one. Very dangerous anytime, but especially at the start of a year, to draw any hard conclusions from such a small sample size. I believe they're 1/27th of the way through the season. I think this would be at the 6-game mark. Like I try to make these comparisons. This is basically like, a little bit after halftime of game one of an NFL game. We're not going to draw any conclusions in terms of overall portion of a season. That said, have we learned anything? Even if we throw in spring to this as well, even if they don't, if they discount some of what they see in the spring, have we learned anything yet about this team that we feel like might be either overall encouraging or discouraging trends to watch and see if they emerge as season-long trends?
I think one reason to be encouraged is the infield defense seems very good. Carlos Correa he made an error today, and still he made a couple of great plays. Eddie Julian and Kyle Farmer when he's in there, but Eddie Julian is making all the plays at second base. He looks more than adequate. Carlos Santana, 38 years old. I was skeptical when I did not realize he was a Gold Glove finalist at first base last year, and I thought the little former pudgy catcher from Cleveland, and it turns out he knows what he's doing there. Actually, Alex Kirilloff has been all right there, but I think the infield defense, especially when they get Royce back, again, they threw out 3 Guardians at the plate today. They could use some help on their rundowns. They tend to throw the ball around a little too much on rundowns, but I would say that infield defense is a positive. The fact that Byron Buxton is playing center field and Max Kepler is a right means the outfield defense is going to be mostly above average. Matt Wallner is an adequate outfielder. I mean, he's a
also
big guy.
Receiving votes.
Yeah, he's a power hitter, but so I think the defense has shown itself to be a positive, and that wasn't always the case last year. If this is indeed the result of Carlos Correa letting his plantar fasciitis heal, it seems to have worked because he is moving around very well.
Okay. Anything that we can draw on as concerns? I mean, I've been worried about the pitching from the get-go. I think you're tamping that down a little bit for me, which is good. I worry about rotation depth, but these guys are healthy at least at this point, and even if it wasn't the world's greatest first turn through the rotation, Ober wasn't great. Everybody else was serviceable to good. Pitching seems like could be still a plus even without the guys that are missing.
Yes, you said rotation depth, and that has the potential to be a 4-alarm fire. There's no doubt. Although I saw Randy Dominic had a good start the other day for the Saints, so cross your fingers there. But
okay.
I mean, they're all healthy at this point. There's 5 of them. They don't have an ace in the hole at St. Paul like they did with Bailey Ober last year, but they seem reasonably optimistic about their depth there. We'll see. If somebody gets hurt, that'll really put them on the spot. I noted that Mike Clevenger signed today, and I always thought he might end up here with his ties to Derek Falvey, but so that's not happening. Dallas Keuchel just signed this week, so that's not happening. If somebody gets hurt, if somebody goes down, then we'll see what happens, because Simeon Woods Richardson, Randy Dobnak, Cole Sands, they've got options, but do they take us to the division title options? Well, I don't want to judge too early, but that is the one real red flag out there that, they didn't last year. Their starting pitching was exceptionally healthy.
Yes.
And if they can do that again, a good trick if you can do it, they'll be fine. But that is kind of the, wait for the problem.
Is David Festa they want to see him pitch a bunch of games in St. Paul? Like if somebody had to miss a couple turns right now, he wouldn't be that guy right away, or could he be that guy?
I'll bet he would not be the guy right away because he does not have the experience. And yes, I do. Yeah. I have heard that they want to give him a couple of months to try it out. I would assume we will see him at some point this year. I doubt that he would be the first call unless they stayed healthy all the way through, into June and July.
Right. Okay. Well, appreciate it as always, Phil. A little bit, like we said, a little bit of a downer from the home opener. Good crowd, pretty nice day, all things considered. It wasn't snowing, it was sunny, it was nice.
Yeah. Can I just say, good crowd. It was the second smallest in Target Field history for a home opener outside of the 2 pandemic years.
Okay.
So I was a little surprised by that. There were a lot of empty seats, and I haven't written about this yet, but talked to some of the stadium guys today. The upper deck will be closed throughout April after this series. They didn't sell any tickets in the upper deck except the outfield. And they'll let season ticket holders sit in the lower bowl in April. So
that includes the Dodgers series, huh? Which would be a big draw if it was middle of July, but it's April.
It is April, yes.
Okay, interesting. That bears watching as the season goes along too, because that is a bottom line question, just like the TV stuff. We didn't even talk TV stuff, Phil. I see how mature I've become in my older age. I'm letting that go for now.
Well, we could talk TV because Dick Bremer was in the house today.
That's right.
And he choked up 3 or 4 times in the different talks that different time he spent with us. So I was really shocked that off of a postseason that brought people so much joy that it was a noticeably not small crowd, but smaller than an opening day crowd.
The Royce Lewis effect again. They got to get Royce back, then all will be well. All right. Phil, appreciate it as always. We'll follow your coverage, of course, and talk to you soon.
Okay, Mike. Thanks.
Good stuff from Phil. Like we said, an off day today. Twins 3-3. Big start for Joe Ryan on Saturday. Kind of want to give them a boost. Like we talked about, Phil and I, when you lose the Pablo Lopez start, again, it's not like this massive drop-off. Joe Ryan had a really good year last year, especially the first half of the year before he was slowed by injury and maybe pitched through something he shouldn't have. But when you lose the start by your best pitcher, you start to go, okay, you got to get more from those guys straight on down the rotation. So can they get that on Saturday? Can they finish this series off stronger, have a better result Saturday and beyond? And again, like I talked about with Phil, 12 straight games, 12 straight days where they play starting Saturday. How will the starting pitching depth and how will the bullpen hold up through that increased workload? Let us finish with the cooler. Sign of the times story. Dawson Garcia coming back to the Gophers. That is good news for Ben Johnson. The quote that is the sign of the times, talking about how Dawson Garcia probably had offers to play elsewhere, to transfer, get more NIL money, said everybody talks about what's maybe broken with college basketball, Ben Johnson said. Dawson's all about what's right with college basketball. He left a lot of money on the table. That's a credit to him. There are things he weighed and his family agreed. I hope our fans can really appreciate that in this day and age. Dawson Garcia saying, I definitely think we're continuing to go in the right direction. This was after the Big Ten tournament. So we've got guys in this locker room, a whole coaching staff, a whole university that's behind us, that's willing and committed. So there you go. He's staying. Dawson Garcia sticking around. The Gophers losing a lot of guys to the portal already right now, but arguably their most important player last year, Dawson Garcia, is sticking around. Maybe left money on the table. Again, sign of the times, but that is the NIL era we are living in. That will do it for me today. Enjoy your weekend. Should be back on Monday with Royce. All sorts of stuff to talk about, I'm sure. Twins, Final Four stuff. Getting closer to the Vikings draft, too. Have to worry about that pretty soon as well. Timberwolves are going to be interesting. They've got a big game tonight against the Suns. So we'll have plenty to talk about with Royce on Monday. Until then, enjoy your weekend. I'm Michael Rand. Back at it on Monday.